Good morning to all the students. So in today's session we are going to start one new topic. We are going to start our unit 4 from our syllabus, which consists of two major parts. The first part is regarding pointers and the second part is regarding binding, right? So these are the two major parts we have, and this is the agenda for this particular unit, what I have prepared and what I am going to discuss. As I told that it consists of two major parts. One is the pointer and the second one is the binding, right? So in the pointer session we will see what a pointer is and what are the features of pointers and how do you declare pointer, what is a pointer to a class, and what is pointer object. This is very important topic. Pointer object is very important topic. You will get questions. You may expect a question from this particular topic, right? This one, pointer object, is nothing but it is regarding the this pointer, right? So you may expect a question, theoretical question or programmatic question from this this pointer, right? And after this we will discuss pointer to derived classes and base classes, right? So once we complete the first part of unit 4, we will go to the second part, which is binding, polymorphisms and virtual functions. We have gone through the virtual functions concept in the third unit, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So we'll again discuss the concept of these virtual functions, abstract classes, everything we will repeat, but everything remains same, but we will learn some new terminology related to these virtual functions and similarly abstract classes, right? And for this topic we will be going through the introduction part, and then we will see what are the various types of binding in C++, what actually the binding is and how many types of binding is there in C++, and then we will see one examples regarding the types of binding, that is compile time binding and runtime binding, and how we can implement all these things we have discussed earlier, right? So we have seen the concept of polymorphism in the third unit also, but in polymorphism, as I told that one function existing having different implementations is called as polymorphism, right? Existing in many forms is termed as polymorphism. It can be done in two ways. One is the compile time polymorphism and second one is the runtime polymorphism. As we have discussed that the compile time polymorphism can be implemented using function overloading and operator overloading, whereas the runtime polymorphism can be implemented using virtual functions, right? So all these things we will see with examples, and similarly we will discuss what are these virtual functions and what are the rules of these virtual functions. We have seen all these things, but we will just repeat it, and if there are any new points to remember, we will just remember those points, right? And finally we have this concept, virtual destructor. It is also one of the important topic where you may expect a question from this virtual destructor also. You can observe here that the second part of the fourth unit is almost equal to that of a third unit, right? So it's something a repetition part. Is it clear up to this agenda part?
Yes, sir.
Right. Yes, so coming to our first part of discussion, that is pointers. We have seen lot of points regarding these pointers in the C programming language. You might have learned the pointers in C. Is it right or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So can anybody tell me what is a pointer?
It points to the address of the variable.
It's not the actual definition. Anybody? Any other definition you have? What actually is a pointer variable?
It is used to store the address of the other variables.
Super, right? So that is the actual definition. The pointer variable is a variable which stores the address of another variable, right? What actually is variable? Why do we use variables in C programming language?
To declare a
Why do we use variables in C programming language?
to
To
declare,
store
sir.
information.
It's not for the declaration. Variable, for making use of the variables, you have to declare. That's a different concept. While declaration, the memory for those variables will be allocated, right? But the actual usage of the variables is to store the information or to store the values which you want to use in the program, right? And if you look at these variables, you can declare it using int a, right? So a is a integer variable and it is capable of storing an integer value. So I can store an integer value like this: a is equal to 100. The value of a is 100 is stored inside this a, and this part int a is called as the declaration part, and the declaration allocates the memory. That compiler, when it looks at this declaration part, what it will do is it will go and allocate a free space that is required for this variable a. So as the integer occupies 4 bytes of memory, it will allocate 4 bytes of memory. Assume that the base address is some 1000 or 2000, right? So these 4 bytes of memory, it will be having a alias name which is called as a. This is called as identifier also. We can also call them as identifiers. So any value, for example 100 is stored in this location. Not actually the 100 is stored, it is a base 10 notation. You will be converting into binary notation, and then you will store the 100 value inside this here. This is how the variables work. So the point what I am going to tell you here is the variables are used to store the values, or they are used to store the information which you are going to use in the program. But coming to pointers, these are also variables. These are also variables only, but they are used to store the address of another variable. That is the difference between a normal variable and a pointer variable. Right. So the only important point is variables are used to store the information, whereas the pointer variables are used to store the address of another variables. Right. In the similar way, when we want to make use of any concept in C programming language, you have to declare that particular variable first. So if I want to store 100 inside 100, if I want to make use of the value 100, since 100 is an integer, I should have a variable to store 100 inside the memory, right? So for that purpose, I have used the declaration called int a, right, where a is a variable. All these things you know. Similarly, when you want to make use of the pointers, the first part you have to do is you have to declare those pointers, right? Similar to that of declaration of normal variables, the syntax for the declaration of pointer variables remains the same. That means the generalized syntax will be data type followed by space, and then we have the star operator, which is indirection operator, and then the variable name. So this is the generalized syntax of declaring a pointer variable. For example, if I want to declare an integer pointer, so for the data type I will replace it with integer, and then I use star, and then a pointer variable ptr, right? So here ptr is called as the pointer variable of type integer, right? Similarly, if I want to declare a floating pointer, I write like this. Instead of data type, I make use of the keyword called float, and then Renuka, please unmute your mic. So when I want to make use of the floating pointer, when I want to declare the floating pointer, I make use of the float keyword for the data type, and then star is common thing we have to use, and then I make use of another pointer variable, right. Similarly, character pointer can be declared like this, right. So this is how we declare the pointers. So the primary purpose of the pointer variable is to store the address of another variable, and this is the syntax we have seen, and these are the examples we have seen for declaring the pointer variables, right. But what is this integer pointer? As I know that the integer variable a is used to store an integer value. Similarly, if I declare another floating point variable, float f is used to store another floating point value, right. Now tell me, what is the purpose of int star ptr? What is this integer pointer will store?
It stores the address of integer variables.
Right. So this ptr is capable of storing an address. That part we are clear, right. But what is that it is going to store means, since it is of type integer pointer, ptr is going to store the address of another integer variable. In the similar manner, fptr is a floating pointer variable, right. So fptr is capable of storing the floating point address of another floating point variable. So fptr is capable of storing the address of another floating point variable. It cannot store the address of another integer variable, or it cannot store the address of another character variable. So this is the purpose of these pointers. So similarly, fch, I have declared this fch as a character pointer. For that, what I will do is, the fch is capable of storing only the address of another character variable. It cannot store the address of integer or float, right. So this is how we are going to make use of the pointers, right. How we are going to declare the pointers and the meaning of these various categories of pointers, all these things we have discussed, right. So similarly, you might have heard the term null pointer. Can anybody tell me what is this null pointer?
It stores 0 value, sir.
Super. It is going to store a null address, right. It is going to store a null address. So what do you mean by null? Means in C++ libraries, the null value is nothing but the 0 address. Sir, why do we call the 0 as the null value? Means 0 is the starting address, and remember that 0, remember this point, very important, right. 0 is the starting address, and the 0 is reserved for the operating system, right. So you cannot make use of this 0th address. So for that purpose, the null is equal to 0, right. In C++ libraries, the null value is defined as 0. So how do you declare a null pointer? Why we require this null pointers means, one important point you should remember regarding these pointers is, when you declare a pointer, I know that the pointer can store the address of another variable, but when you declare a pointer, it is mandatory that the pointer should be initialized with an address, right. So what is that it has to do? A pointer should always be initialized with an address. It should have some valid address. If the programmer doesn't have any valid address to be assigned to the pointer that is declared, then it is mandatory that the programmer has to initialize that pointer with a null value, right. So you should have some value or some address to be stored inside a pointer, but sometimes you may not have the valid address. In such cases, the pointer declaration cannot be left like that. So once you declare a pointer, you have to initialize it with some valid address or with some null value, right. So when do we go for null value? If there is no valid address to be assigned to my pointer variable, then I go for the null value, right? So this is how we declare or we initialize a null value to a pointer. Right. So this is the address, null address I am assigning to this pointer. So these type of pointers, that means the pointers where the pointers which are initialized to a null value are called as null pointers, right? All these things we will see and we will just go through it, right? Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Similarly, we have another thing called as generic pointer. Can anybody tell me what is generic pointer? Do you have any
It
idea?
doesn't have a specified data type.
Okay, it is generic in nature. Okay, whatever you told is correct, but how do you declare a generic pointer? Any idea?
Using template.
No, templates are a different concept, right? So the generalized syntax is data type star variable name. The same syntax has to be used to declare the generic pointer also. First of all, tell me what do you understand by this term generic pointer? What do you understand by integer pointer? At least you tell me this, I will tell you what generic pointer is. What is an
It
integer?
stores the address of an
Address
integer
of integer
variable.
variable.
Super, right. It stores the address of integer variable only. Floating pointer means it stores the address of another floating point variable only. Character pointer means it stores the address of another character pointer only. But generic, at least tell me what is the meaning of generic? It is common, right? So it is a common pointer. That means this pointer can be used to store the address of any other variable. No restrictions. You have to store only the integer variable address only. You have to store the address of only floating point variables. You have to store the address of only character variables. All these restrictions are not there. You can store the address of any variable, right? So the generic pointer can store the address of integer variable, or it can store the address of floating pointer variable, or it can store the address of character variable also. So such type of pointers are called as generic pointers. So the other name for this generic pointer is what is this one? What is the other name for the generic pointer? Are you there?
Sir, are you annotating right now, sir?
Yeah, I am writing. I have written here in the top left corner. You can observe here. What is the other name for the generic pointer?
Untyped pointer, sir.
Huh?
Untyped pointer.
No, I have written here. You can see right now. This point.
Null pointer, sir.
No, null pointer is a pointer to which we have given or we have initialized it to null value. That is, null pointer is different. See, can't you see my annotations here?
Sir, I think your screen has frozen, sir.
Yes, sir.
No, it is shared.
Your screen
only.
has paused.
So it is still sharing only. It is in the sharing part only. From what point you are unable to see my annotations?
About null pointer last, sir.
Null point, sir.
From the null point. Let me stop the screen and then share it again. Now can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you see this generic pointer in the top left corner, this one?
Screen share hasn't started, so.
No, sir. Screen share didn't start now, sir.
Okay, it is still in process only. Yeah. Now please tell me whether it is visible or not.
It's loading, sir.
Is it still loading?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. It is still loading, sir.
Hello. Hello. Ma, can you hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you see the screen right now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Now it is visible, sir.
Okay, thank you, Amma. Right. So can you see the topic generic pointer in the top left corner of the screen?
Yes,
Yes, sir. We can, sir.
Right.
Sir.
Now, as I told that the generic pointers are the pointers which are capable of storing the address of any other variable. That means they are capable of storing the integer variable address, or they are capable of storing the floating point variable address, or character variable address also. So the other name for the generic pointers is the void pointers. Right. Now tell me, what is the syntax for this void pointer? What is the syntax for the void pointer?
Void, indirection operator, and variable name.
Void star some PTR. Right. So void is one type of data type we have which says that nothing is there, right? So the void pointers are otherwise called as generic pointers and are capable of storing any address, right? So let us look at some of the important applications of pointers. Tell me where you have seen the usage of these pointers or the applications of pointers. Anybody? Please have a recap of your C programming concepts and you please tell me where we have used these pointers. At least 2 points. I am expecting 2 points from you people. Right, we'll discuss all those things, but let you people recap the concepts. Anybody please respond.
Call by address, sir.
Super, right, in the call by reference or call by address. Next, any other example you have? Have you used the concept of pointers in arrays?
Yes, sir.
Is this concept covered in C programming language? Right. So we can make use of the pointers concept in arrays, or we can make use of it in strings. Almost both these things are similar only. And what about this malloc or calloc? What is the concept for this malloc calloc? What do we call that concept?
Dynamic allocation, sir.
Dynamic memory allocation. Do we use the pointers concept in dynamic memory allocation?
Yes, sir.
Right. So without the concept of pointers, it is impossible to implement the concept of this dynamic memory allocations. Why? Because the malloc calloc functions, as we know that they are used to allocate the memory dynamically, and the other purpose of this malloc and calloc is once they allocate the sufficient memory, they will return the base address of the allocated memory. So when they return some address, it is we need to have the pointers, right? We cannot store the addresses inside the variables. We have to store the addresses inside the pointers only. So for this purpose, what we do is whatever address or whatever base address that the malloc function returns after allocating the memory successfully, that address, the base address, should be stored inside a pointer variable. So you cannot have the concept of dynamic memory allocation without the concept of pointers, right? Have you gone through the concept of files in C?
Yes, sir.
You are able to see my annotations, right? No problem.
Yes, sir.
Right. So have you used the concept of pointers in files?
Yes, sir.
Yes, right. So whenever you want to make use of the concept of files, you have to create a file pointer. The first and foremost step you are going to do in case of these files is you have to declare the file pointer. That is done by making use of the syntax like this: file star fptr. Right. So these are the various applications of the pointers in C programming language. In the similar way, all these concepts can also be used in the C++ also, as we know that C++ is an extension of C programming language. So whatever concept that is supported in the C programming language are also supported in the C++ also, right? But other than this, in C++ we can create pointers to class. right? In the similar way, as we create the pointers to any other variables or any other data types, we can also create pointers to class, right? Class is a user defined data type. Do you accept it or not?
Yes, sir.
Right. So can we create pointers to structures? Can we create pointers to structures? Please respond.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. Can we create pointers to unions? Yes, we can create, right? In the similar manner, as we are able to create the pointers for the user defined data types such as structures and unions, it is also possible to create the pointer variables for other user defined data types such as classes. So in C++ we will mostly discuss the concept of creating pointers to classes, right? In the third unit we have gone through the pointers to classes also, right? May I know where we have used this class pointers?
In upcasting, sir.
Super, right? In upcasting. And other than that, can we create objects for an abstract class?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
So if you are unable to create objects for the abstract class, you cannot make use of those abstract classes. So for that purpose, what the author has told us is, though you are unable to create the objects for the abstract class, abstract classes allow us to create the pointers and references for those classes. So here is another usage of the pointers. So whenever you want to create the pointers to class, and it is a mandatory part in the abstract class, right? Why? Because you are unable to create the objects for the abstract classes. So how can I make use of these abstract classes? Means yes, you can make use of these abstract classes by making or by creating the pointers to these abstract classes. Here is another application of these pointers to class. So other than these 5 topics which we have seen in the C programming language, we will go through the pointers to class in C++. Similarly, we will also discuss the pointers to objects. This is nothing but this pointer. So these are the important points we are going to discuss in terms of the pointers in C++. Is it clear up to this point? If it is clear, we will just go through the slides.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right, thank you. So here is the introduction part to the pointers. A pointer is a, here what he is discussing is, a pointer is a variable whose value is the address of another variable. That is what we have discussed. A pointer is a variable which can store the address of another variable. Right. So why we are dealing with these addresses means, right, every variable, whenever it wants to store some value, it has to be stored inside the memory location. So in order to store the values, you have to create memory locations for the variable. So every variable has a memory location. And how can you access these memory locations? Memory locations can be accessed by the addresses. Right. So every memory location that is present inside the memory will have the address. Right. So in order to store a value inside a variable, you have to store inside the memory. Whenever you want to access the memory, every memory will be accessed by making use of the address, right? So that is the concept of address we have, and this pointer variable can store the address of another variable, right? Like any variable or constant, you must declare a pointer before you work with it. That is what we told. And this is the generalized syntax, that is data type followed by star followed by variable name. Where type is pointers based type, it must be a valid C++ type, right? It can be a fundamental data type or it can be a user defined data type also. and the variable name, where name is the name of the pointer variable. Right. And see, these are the some of the benefits we have with this pointers concept. Right. Some C++ tasks are performed more easily with pointers. Right. For example, let me give an example for this. For example, you have you are working for an organization which works for the development of system programming. Right. So you work on some operating system, or you work on some utilities, or you work on some system libraries, all these things. Right. So it is somewhat, the software is somewhat related to the system related programs. Right. So when one person is involved, so when a person is involved in the system programming, he always needs to access the memories. Right. System programming requires, we call it as a low level programming or whatever it may be. So in the low level programming or the system programming, one needs to access the addresses of the variables. So this particular concept of accessing the addresses is supported by the pointers. So for this purpose, the pointers concept plays a very major role while we are dealing with the system programs or low level programs. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
And another point,
Yes,
this
sir.
we have discussed. Some tasks such as dynamic memory allocation cannot be performed without them. Without pointers, no dynamic memory allocation. Keep it in mind. Clear, right? So more than one variable, and whatever that Vaishnavi has told, that these pointers are used to implement the concept of pass by reference. Right. So one question I would like to ask you is, how many values can a function return?
One value, sir.
Only one value, right? But is it possible to return more than one value?
Yes, sir. We call by reference.
Yes, we can return, but this is not actually we are returning the values, but it creates an illusion that as if you are returning more than one value, right? It is just an illusion, right? So in order to return more than one value from a function, you have to make use of the pointers, which is the concept called as pass by reference. Right. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And pointers help in simplifying the complexity of the program. Why? Because when we make use of the pointers to arrays, it is very much easier to write programs related to the arrays or multi-dimensional arrays, not the one-dimensional arrays as we have discussed. Writing programs for one-dimensional arrays is a direct thing and it is very easy. But when you are dealing with more than one dimension of an array, right, when you are dealing with multi-dimensional arrays, the complexity of the programming increases when we make use of the indices concept. You cannot write simple programs, or you cannot write programming, or you cannot think of the programming logic also for multi-dimensional arrays. So the complexity of such type of programs which involves the multi-dimensional arrays can be simplified. The complexity can be simplified with the help of pointers, right? And similarly, pointers increases the execution speed as the programmer has the direct access to the memory locations, right? Is it right or not? When you are declaring the pointers, does the programmer having the direct access to memory locations or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So when the programmer is having a direct access to the memory location, you can make some programs possible in terms of the system level programming or the low level programming, right? In such cases, the program execution will also increase. This is only possible because of the pointers only. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes,
And
sir.
these are the some of the features which we will be repeating again. So pointers save memory space, right? Why they are going to save memory space? In general, when you want to store an integer variable, you will declare it as int a like this, and then we'll store some value here, and then you create a pointer int star ptr. Then again the memory will be allocated, and we'll be creating like this pointers, right? So we have an indirection here. We have an indirection. That means whenever I want to access the value of 10, I can do it in two ways. Either I can access it by using a, or I can access it by using the ptr also, right? So there are two ways. This is first method and this is second method. The first method is a direct method where you are directly accessing the value of 10 using the variable a. But the second method is a indirect method where when you want to access the value of 10, you are accessing the pointer, and from pointer you are accessing this 10. But here he is saying that pointers save memory space. It is somewhat contradictory. Or why? Because we are allocating an extra space to store the pointer. But how he is going to declare, or how he is going to give this statement that pointers save memory space means, how many types of memories you know?
Types: static memory and dynamic memory, sir.
Static memory and dynamic memory. Okay, RAM, ROM, all these things are correct only. But have you ever heard of this term stacks and heaps?
Yes, sir.
Right. What is this
Yes, sir.
stack and heap? What is this stack and heap? Any idea? Yes or no? Any idea? Yes or no? Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Right. So do you have any idea on these stacks and heaps? How many memory allocation?
Linear data structure, sir.
Okay, that is a different concept, but I'm not going to discuss about the data structures concept, right? How many types of memory allocations are there? Please be fast. How many types of memory allocations are there?
2 types, sir.
2 types. Super. What are they?
Static, dynamic.
Dynamic memory allocation and static memory allocation.
Okay, compile time or runtime, we can call them as compile time and runtime, or we can also call them as, this is static and this is dynamic. So can anybody tell me? Yeah, please tell me.
Heap is also a memory allocation, no sir?
What is that one?
Heap, sir.
Heap is also a memory. I will tell you. I am just telling that one only, right? So these stacks and heaps are some special types of memory. You have the memory, and the memory can be the memory is renamed with different names, right? So some part of the memory you call it as stack, and some part of the memory you call it as heap. Why this differentiation means? Because of these types of memory allocations we have. As we know that we have 2 types of memory allocations. One is the compile time and another one is the runtime. We can also call it as static versus dynamic, right? All these things we have discussed in the earlier classes. But what is this compile time memory allocation means? The memory will be allocated at compile time. So for the compile time memory allocation or static memory allocation, it will make use of these stacks. And for this runtime memory allocation, or else we can call it as dynamic memory allocation. For the dynamic memory allocation, it is going to use the heap memory. This is important point you should remember. So we have two types of memories based upon the types of memory allocation. The compile time memory allocation is done on a special part of memory which we call it as stacks, and the runtime memory allocation is done on another part of memory which we call it as heaps. Right. And remember that the value, these stacks and heaps can change its, right, it looks something like this. So we have register values, data register, and this is somewhat coding part, and this is called as stack, this is OS, and this is called as heap, and in between this stack and heap we have lot of memory, right? So it can, the stack can extend in the downward direction and the heap can extend in the upward direction. This is how the memory location looks like, right? This is one of the diagram picture that represents how this stack and heap are arranged, right? But when compared to that of heap allocation, the stack allocation is somewhat limited in nature, right? So when you declare, for example, when you declare like this int a of 50, the 50 locations or 50 integer values will be allocated on which memory location? Is it on stack or heap? So I have declared my integer array consisting of 50 integer values. It is capable of storing 50 integer values. Now tell me whether this particular allocation is done on stack or heaps. Any idea?
Stack, sir.
Stack. May I know the reason why you have mentioned it as stack?
It is allocated during the compilation, sir.
Super, right? So whenever you want to know where this variable declaration or where these variables are stored, whether they are stored on the stacks or heaps, you have to have an idea on the memory allocation. You just look at this declaration. This is a compile time allocation. That means you are declaring the size of the array before using them. So this comes under the category of compile time allocation only. So when you are making use of compile time allocation, it is going to use the stack, right? But what about heaps? For example, I declare like this: struct node star ptr is equal to malloc of size of something, right? So what is this declaration? Is it a compile time declaration, or it is going to allocate the memory in the during the runtime?
During runtime, sir.
Runtime. Why? Because we are making use of the dynamic memory allocation techniques, malloc, calloc, all these things, right? So in such case, malloc, you have used malloc, therefore this is a dynamic memory allocation. So whenever you are using the dynamic memory allocation, you have to make use of heaps, right? And this is how we are going to distinguish where this memory is allocated, whether we are going to allocate it on stacks or whether we are going to allocate it on heaps. So is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. So let us look at this array declaration. So if there is a limited number of numbers or the values that is going to be stored inside the array, you can make use of these stacks. But whenever the size of the array is increased, right, you don't know how the stack size is going to influence. You may have to store some 10,000 records, or you may have to store some millions of records, or you may have to store some trillions of records. In such case, you cannot declare the arrays in the static memory allocation, right? Static memory allocation is not suitable when you don't know how much size you want to store or how many values you want to store, right? So they are going to change dynamically. So whenever the values you are going to store changes dynamically, the range of values are going to change in the dynamic manner, then you have to go through the concept of heaps only, right? you have to go to the concept of dynamic memory allocation, which makes use of heaps. In the simple manner, why it is going to save memory means pointers. See here, this is a, again I am telling, this is a compile time allocation. You have declared 50 elements. So what is the total size that is occupied here? 50 into 4, 200 bytes. Is it right or not?
Yes, sir.
Now look at an example where you are making use of only 10 elements. Right, only 10 elements you have used. That means 10 into 4, 40 bytes will be used and the remaining 160 bytes will be wasted. Right, this is the wastage of memory in the static memory allocation. But whenever you don't know the size of the array in advance, in such case you can declare the array using the pointers. So for dynamic memory allocation, you should make use of the pointers. In such case, there is no need that you have to declare the size of the array before you are using it. Right. So initially I have the requirement of only storing 10 elements. Okay, you can store 10 elements. Right. And then there is an urgent need that you need to increase the size of this array from 10 to 100. Yes, I can do it. I can change the size of the array from 10 to 100. So this is possible only when you are allocating the memory dynamically, and dynamic memory allocation is always supported by the pointers. Don't think of this dynamic memory allocation using this malloc. So pointers can be used to create the arrays or to declare the arrays. When you make use of pointers, it is going to use the heap memory. So you are going to increase the size as and when you require, which is not supported for this compile time allocation or static memory allocation. Right, that is how the pointers save memory. Right, so it is going to allocate memory as and when we require. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. And the
Yes,
second
sir.
important feature is execution time with pointers is faster. This point we have discussed in the earlier slide. So some programs or some programmers or some organizations, they need to work with the addresses in case of the embedded programming or system programming or low level programming. In such cases, you can directly access the addresses using pointers only. You can manipulate those addresses by making use of the pointers only. Is it clear?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Right. So memory is accessed efficiently with the pointers. This point is almost similar to this one only. It is going to save the memory space. Pointers are going to save the memory space, and the memory can be efficiently used with the pointers. Why? Because as and when you require, you can adjust your memory that is already allocated. Right. So you are going to allocate memory to according to your requirements only. No extra memory allocation is allocated, and there is no wastage of memory. So when there is no wastage of memory, you can say that the memory is efficiently utilized by making use of the pointers. Is it clear?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Right, this is the point which we have discussed earlier. Pointers are used with different data structures. Right, they are useful in representing the two-dimensional as well as the multi-dimensional arrays. As we have discussed in the earlier slide, that the programming complexity can be reduced using pointers. So when you go for the programming of two-dimensional multi-dimensional arrays using indices, it becomes some cumbersome, or the task becomes somewhat difficult for the programmer. In such case, in order to simplify or in order to simplify the complexity of such programs which involves the multi-dimensional arrays, you can make use of the pointers. Right, this is to reduce the complexity. Is it clear?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Right, an array of any type can be accessed with the help of pointers without considering its subscript range. Subscript range means nothing but indexes. Don't worry about the index and subscripts. while you are making use of the pointers. That is the point the author is trying to sell, right? So you can access the elements of an array using indexes. That is what we know till now, right? For example, if I want to access the 5th element, I write it like this, a of 4. If I want to access the 25th element, I write it as a of 24, right? That means name of the array, and within the subscript you have to give the index number that is less than the element which you want to access. For example, I want to access the nth element, I should write it as name of the array followed by n minus 1. So this is how you access the elements of the arrays using indexes. But there is another way to access the arrays with the help of pointers. That means you never bother about the range, right? You can keep on increasing when you make use of pointers. You can keep on increasing the size of the array by making use of pointers. So don't worry about the size of the subscript or the range of subscript, right? And similarly, this point also we have discussed, pointers are used for file handling, and similarly pointers are used to allocate dynamic memory dynamically. And in C++, a pointer declared to a base class. As I told that we have an additional concept in C++ where you can create pointers for a class. So you can create a pointer to the base class from which you can access the objects of a derived class. But you cannot access the objects of the base class using the derived class, right? That means you create a pointer for the derived class and then you are trying to access the objects of the base class. That is not possible, but the reverse is possible, where you will create a pointer for the base class and by using that pointer you can access the objects of the derived class. Is it clear up to this point, futures?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is the last slide of the today's session. What are the uses of pointers? As we have discussed earlier, it is used to pass arguments by reference, and it is used for accessing the arrays elements, and it is used to return multiple values, dynamic memory allocation, to implement data structure, to do system level programming where memory addresses are useful. This is what we are stressing from the first slide onwards, right? Whenever you want to program the system level programming where you require the direct access for the memories, you need to modify the direct values that are present inside the memory by directly accessing those memory addresses. In such case, the pointers concept is very much useful for the programmer. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Right. So this is all about the introduction part to the pointers. This is end of today's session, and in tomorrow's session also we are going to continue with the same topic where we will discuss the different pointers and addresses, how we are going to access the address and how we are going to use the dereference operator with a programming, and then the null pointers, pointers to class, pointers to objects. All these classes, all these concepts we will discuss in tomorrow's session. So this is end of today's session. Thank you one and all for your support. Thank you.